and welcome Olof to the
thank you very much.
stage.
Well, as you can see, I'm sitting up in the northern part of Sweden. I'm currently on vacation, but I wouldn't miss the opportunity to have a lunch and learn together with Learning Tree and B3B people. We are going to talk about some issues regarding the war in Ukraine, but also going to deep dive a little bit into ransomware and the new ugly face of ransomware. If you have any questions regarding this presentation or during the presentation, please raise your hand in Teams and we will address it directly. So, what are we going to talk about today?
And Olof, I'll just quickly interrupt there. So just good afternoon to everybody. My name's Tony, working from Stockholm for Learning Tree, a large technical training company who are seeing an extreme rise in cybersecurity training. And Olof has previously delivered some CISP training to B3 over the years. And we thought this would be a really interesting subject to quickly run through on this lunch and learn for you. So any questions, put your hand up or make a comment in the chat, and I will read that back to Olof as well. And we hope you manage to get something from this conversation.
I can see I have some problem with my presentation because it doesn't shift sides here. So, well, I'm going to present it like this. Is everybody seeing this? Is it readable if I do it like this?
It's good for me.
Yes.
Please flag if it's not.
Okay, cool. So a little bit about myself, Olof Alholm. I've held the CISP classes for B3B. I think it was 1 or 2 years ago. I'm a certified CEH or certified ethical hacker, also CISP and ISO 27001 certified. I hold classes for Learning Tree regarding technical security, cybersecurity, and also CISP training or the prep courses. I've started 4 IT companies during my lifetime. And I've also been working for Siemens as a security administrator. I worked for SAS, the airline company. And I also started up the security work for ATIA, their security group, 2015. My specialties, they are in security analysis, also gap reporting, web security, and vulnerability management. And of course, I rest everything on CIS Top 18, ISO 27001 or NIST. There's no idea in reinventing the wheel when we have security frameworks like that. And also I am a certified space geek. So if anybody would like to talk about that, I'm all ears. So we're going to start about the war in Ukraine, and I see I missed an E here. What happened? Well, we could say that the cyber war in Ukraine, it has been going on since 2014, and it started with the invasion of Crimea. And one of the nastier part of that escaped from Ukraine, that was the virus NotPetya, which actually almost put Maersk out of business. All of their servers worldwide, they were encrypted by NotPetya. Except for one server that was situated in Ghana, and they had a power outage. If they hadn't had that, well, maybe Maersk wouldn't be around today because they had no working backups and they couldn't use the backups because their AD was totally encrypted. We can see that during the attack since February 2022, more or less the complete Russian cyber capacity is involved in some way. They have built up their cyber resilience or cyber capacity in a slightly different way than the West. They are using hacker groups, which are tightly connected to the government, but there are no clear links behind it. So they can easily have plausible denial. Onion Duke, Cozy Bear are 2 groups that were responsible for the NotPetya virus, and they are involved in this as well. From Ukraine's part, they have set up a global hacker command to attack Russian interests. And they communicate and direct their attacks mostly via Telegram. And this has raised some quite interesting issues worldwide, because the Ukrainian government, they are actually urging people and saying it's okay to attack Russian interests. And from a legal standpoint, how should we address that? But we can see today that modern warfare always starts with hacker attacks and the DDoS attacks and encryption and intrusions. But they have taken this a bit further, as we're going to see in the war in Ukraine. And we have seen these effects in Europe and globally as well. And this has led to an increased level of digital incidents worldwide, and also an increased cyber vigilance in the West, increasing our robustness, our ability to act on cyber warfare. And the interesting part today is that since zero-day attack in NotPetya, the President of the United States, he could actually launch two types of attacks today. And one is nuclear attack, and the second one is cyber attack. He is the only one that could actually give order about that. And that is because cyber attacks are today deemed so powerful. They could basically render a country out of power, out of communications, and it's so much more effective than rolling in military forces. So what happens here? Well, it started, we could see in the beginning of February, increased cyber activity in that area. We saw spear phishing attacks against the energy sector in Ukraine. They were called SaintBot and Outsteal. What they were trying to do was actually to hack into the energy and power grid for Ukraine to be able to control that. Later on in February, we saw two malwares called Grimplant and GraphSteal. They were sent to the West, and they acted as a Trojan. And it was implanted in translation software, Ukraine to other languages, because they saw that, well, a lot of companies worldwide, they are going to need to be able to read Ukrainian, and we need to translate that. So they implemented or installed backdoors in this kind of translation software. We saw in the middle of February large DDoS attacks targeting Ukrainian banks, military and public services, and also large SMS batches were sent out with fake news, just to disinform the Ukrainian government and people of Ukraine, to make it really hard to see what is going on here. And we can also see, and we see that misinformation and fake news and technology like that has been used to a great deal of extent to make it very hard to actually say what's going on, what's true, what's not true. And the day before the attack, we saw massive DDoS attacks. There were roughly around 600, and they were targeted against Ukrainian government and government sites. And that was because they would really make it hard for people of Ukraine to read what is going on, taking away the prime ways of communication to the people of Ukraine. And then on the day of the attack, we saw the similar thing as before the attack on Crimea. They sent out large batches of malware or ransomware, and they were called Hermetic Viper and Foxblade. And those two sweethearts, they have really roamed the earth. So it's not just isolated to Ukraine and the area around that. They have been targeting worldwide. So we saw it in the West as well. And during February and March, we saw an increase of 1,800% of ransomware. So it was a totally ridiculous increase of ransomware if you compare to the previous month. And also at the same day of the war, massive DDoS attacks were targeting Ukrainian news capacity. And one attack especially has been catching the eye of the EU because they were sending malware attacks targeting Viasat systems. And that attack was called Acid Rain. And large parts of their system, they were down for weeks. And as of now, the European community, they are actually looking into this because that outage of communication channels were quite obvious to large parts of Europe. During this time, we could also see that they were redirecting, West was redirecting satellite capacity to aid Ukrainian communications in the case that the Russian hacker commands were actually able to disturb the communication, internal communications within Ukraine. At the end of February, or the day after the attack, we saw large hack attacks against Ukrainian customs and universities. We also saw large disinformation campaigns starting at, it said Meets platform, it should be Meet Us platform. And also a huge amount of accounts were disabled on the Meta platform. And we saw DDoS attacks against multiple Ukrainian government sites. We had large phishing campaigns against Ukrainian government, and they actually hacked quite a significant number of accounts. And they sent out misinformation and installed malware to open up backdoors into their system. In the beginning of March, we saw large DDoS attacks against the complete telecom sector in Ukraine. So what we can see here is that this war has taught us that before a military conflict, they aim for communication sector, for public services, and they really would like to send in misinformation and disinformation through social media platforms. And also Ukrainian TV24 was hacked. And this was possibly the most aggressive because they had made deepfake movies of President Zelensky from TV24, where he urges Ukrainian forces to stop fighting and surrender to the Russian forces. And you know, as I know, that deepfake today is really hard to actually say that this is fake. You need to have a high level of technical skills and solutions and systems around to actually see that it's deepfake. So this is just a small portion of the complete story. We have a link here where you can actually see this is updated on a daily basis. Who is winning here? I would say that it's a stalemate. The Ukrainian forces, they are globally spread and they are attracting other hacker groups like Anonymous to aid them and help them. And the most powerful way they can actually disturb communication channels is through DDoS attacks. And DDoS attacks, they can be made in 3 different ways. You could have protocol attacks attacking the TCP/IP protocol. You could have a volume attack, meaning that I'm drenching your lines. If I have a 1 megabit line, I'm sending 10 gigabyte of data, and that will render your internet connection quite useless. And we have application attacks where we take exploit of vulnerabilities within applications that we have facing towards internet. So target for the attacks, that is communication and disruption of communication, disinformation, making it very hard for people to know what's going on, and also targeting critical government services, and also to disrupt military capacities such as drones, GPS signals, and stuff like that. And we know that Ukrainian forces has been very successful using drones in this warfare. So we see a new area here, and that is how do we disturb drone capacity? And they are usually based on GPS signals. So how do a country, or how do we disrupt that? That has been some basis of the war. And in the West, we have seen the effects by this digital war. An insane increase in ransomware, and the party ticket family, Viper families, and also we see an increased digital surveillance towards the West, governance, companies, and stuff like that. So we can see this is a collection of the different groups, and maybe it's too small to see, but there is a huge amount of hacker groups and communities that are fighting both for Ukraine and also for Russia. Because if you own the digital highway where everything is changing hands, information flows and stuff like that, you will have an upper hand in the actual war. So what about ransomware? Well, we see a new phase of ransomware. You will not only get attacked, you will get ransomed for that information. So your data will be encrypted and you will get ransom for that. So, and then you have a decision, should we pay or should we not pay? Even if you don't pay, you will get ransomed so that they will not spread the information, because today we see that they are not just encrypting information, they are mining it and they are extrapolating it out of your company. So I don't know if it's a funny story, but it's quite telling on how they work today. One company said that we don't have amount of money to pay you. And the hacker group, they sent back a copy of their insurance saying, yes, you have. You can read it here. Just showing that we have this amount of data. So you will get a second ransom saying, if you don't want us to actually publish this on YouTube or internet, you will pay us money for that as well. You will also have an internal DDoS attack, because let's say you're a big company, you have 60,000 computers or thousands of servers. How could you install that or reinstall that in time? Usually you will be down for a serious amount of time, and you will lose serious amount of information. So we see this increase in secondary attacks, because if you pay, your increase to get hit again increases by 75%. So if you get ransomware, I'm sorry to say, usually you're in a very bad state, because you will be hit again, and they will keep ransoming your company for money regarding getting the data back, and also not to spread the information further out. So what do we need to have in place today? Because even if you see the war in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, this type of warfare, ransomware, it's spreading towards us because internet is interconnected, right? So you need to have a policy saying, should we pay or should we not pay? You need also to have in place what we call extreme incident handling. You do not have the time to go by your standard process to call that person and let's reconvene in the conference center in 30 minutes. Because what we have seen is that these type of new ransomware families, they will encrypt your complete data center within 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And if you choose to pay, the statistics say that you will only get back roughly 60% of your data due to the fact that the encryption is so poorly done and by such a high speed. So the data will be corrupted. And only 4% of those that get hit by ransomware will get everything back. So the statistics tell us that it's small and medium-sized business that are hit. 70% of the time. It's not larger companies. It's, as we see today, it's smaller and medium-sized businesses that are hit by ransomware. My own estimate or guess here is that smaller companies, they have less IT maturity, less resources than large companies have today. So any questions regarding that? Because I'm going to move into part 2 here. So if you have any questions regarding the war in Ukraine or ransomware or DDoS, this is the time.
No questions in the forum as of yet, Olof, but thank you very much for that. Does anyone have anything they want to address? I think we're good for now. Just a few clapping hands.
Yeah. Then let's move on to the next part, because this is just the first part. This is what happened right now. As I said, we need to have the policies in place. We need to have extreme incident handling, but we also, why are companies today being hit by a ransomware? This is what we call today friction. We have friction within the company, and friction needs to be solved. And now I'm going to jump over to my next presentation here. So friction. I'm sorry, this is in Swedish. I didn't have time to translate it, but I'm going to explain to you what it is. Well, friction within a company, it's when security and work are in its opposite way, or stands in opposites to each other. So I usually call this the cabbage versus chocolate, meaning I know that cabbage is very good for me, and chocolate is very instantaneously rewarding for me. How does this fit into what I'm talking about right now? Well, when we come to security, everybody knows how we should act in a secure way. We know that cabbage is good for us. But if we have chocolate on the side, we are going to use that. And this is basically friction within a company, meaning that security must be an integral part of the company. It should be easy to do right and virtually impossible to do wrong. Because if you have chocolate besides, people are going to have that way. Meaning, if it's easier to do this than that, they are going to do the easy way. So this is basically true about security. We have 3 myths about security. And that is, if we show users that information security is important, they are going to do right, or the right thing. That is wrong. Because if I have, for instance, a mail limit of 25 megabyte of mail, and I need to send that presentation for this afternoon's meeting, they are starting to look for other ways to do that, because they are looking for chocolate. They know cabbage, but I need to send this right now. Another myth is also that users report information incidents. No, they do not, because usually they don't. If you do not have a company where you could actually talk about everything, and you have a high level of trust between senior management and the employees. If they are getting scared, if they think that I'm going to be ridiculed for clicking this link that led to a ransomware, they are not going to report incidents. We need to have in place on the company so that everybody knows that the best thing to do, the only thing to do, is to report incidents, even if I might look quite silly. And the third myth is that if users know how they should do things from an information security perspective, they are going to do that. That is also a myth. And I'm sorry to say that most security work that I see are basing their beliefs of the company on myths most of the time. You need to actually see how the company is working. Do we have a company where we can talk about everything? Well, maybe that is not myth, but we really need to go down to the psychological part of the company to be able to see if security is working within my company or not. Do you agree on that? Or am I just being cheeky here?
No comments on that at the moment.
No input.
I think everyone's just absorbing the information.
Yeah, okay. So what we also see regarding IT, especially after 24th of February, is that we have the new normal is that everything is abnormal, and that is the new normal. Meaning that we have had the pandemic. Now we have this situation. We have an energy crisis, and new technology are getting launched all the time. Meaning that we operate within an environment with quite unclear guidelines, and we have a high level of workload. That increases the chance of me clicking on the wrong link or being targeted by phishing attacks. So the new normal is also that everything is changing and evolving, and we don't have static work environment. That is also the new normal. We need to take that into consideration. And we also have shifting priorities. Priorities are shifting within companies faster and faster. And if I don't have security policies or security that really adopts this, and that this is the basis of what we are doing right now, I would say that you probably will fail with security policies and your security work. So friction must be addressed within the company. It needs to be known, and you need to solve it. And on this level, as information security or cybersecurity, that's not a technical issue. It's a psychological issue. You need to know your company. What is working, what is not working? Do we need to change how people see things within the company? And also, traditionally, we have IT with a large I and a large T. And that means that we have an equal amount of focus on information as technology. But most companies have a very large T, a lot of focus on the technology, and not so much focus on the information in itself. Or should we have a large I and a small t, meaning that we have more focus on information and working processes, information classification, so we know what to protect and how to protect it in the best way. And we should also know that today's cybersecurity, it will impact physical security. And just last year, we have the UKD, or the University Clinic in Düsseldorf. That was the first person that unfortunately lost her life due to ransomware. Because the hospital, they were ransomware, and they had to close the clinic, and they needed to redirect all the ambulances to hospitals in the vicinity. And due to that reshift or the longer way for the patient to travel to the other hospital, that person died in the ambulance. So it will have physical impact in some businesses, university hospitals, energy sector, housing, and police departments, traffic. We could not longer say that, well, information or cybersecurity is just a technical thing. It's more and more affecting us on a physical level. So the top 5 vulnerabilities that we need to address is the psychological part of it, the cabbage versus the chocolate. But also, if we could just agree on these 5 things that we need to address, and that is building security holes within application in itself. We need to address those. We need to have good, sound policies on how to handle ransomware. We need also to address DDoS and other attacks that will disturb our communications and our possibility to communicate within the company and outside the company. We also see that a lot of companies, they have not enough updating frequency on their software. They're not patching it enough. Maybe they're just patching Windows, but what about Java? What about the database services? What about applications? And also making sure that we don't have end-of-life software within our network. So we need to address that as well. And also that we don't scan or analyze our internal behavior within the company from a security perspective. So we need to have an internal control of what happens within our network to be able to secure in a good way. So information security must be built in the company, built in the way we work, and built into our applications. And I'm just not going to get started here, but today's IT environment are so complex. It's not just within my company. We have cloud services, we have hybrid services. So today we are talking about mist computing, fog computing, edge computing. So of course, the more complex the environment, the more important it is to have a clear understanding on what is happening in each layer of my IT environment. So I think that I'm basically ready for that. Any questions regarding this?
Thank you, Olof, sitting up in northern Sweden on the border of Norway. Thanks for taking some time on your vacation. There's nothing in the chat right now. Does anyone have anything that they would like to ask or address? Or is it all stuff to be digested? We have from Sophia saying it's super interesting but super scary, as we know. Martin, you're on mute there if you were trying to talk.
Yeah, we're having a bit of a music testing in the conference room here, so I was just telling them to please lower the music a little bit for me to thank you guys for an awesome talk. And as Sophia is saying, so interesting but so scary in the comments here.
Well, I'm going to say what you don't know is scary. So let's turn this around and make insecurity a way of doing business, because that is basically what I'm saying. So yes, it's scary, but we need to somehow just address it to be able to grow as a company.
Good words to end with. Thank you so much to all of you that listened in. It's giving applause here to Olof, and you can read more about Learning Tree on our intra. I can link straight to it in the chat. Did we tell them that we have a discount, Tony?
No, not yet. It was more to jump straight into Olof's a bit more interesting, I think, to talk about that. So, but we do, of course, we're looking to to offer you guys the best possible rates on any external training. So we have around 600 courses. Olof is our lead trainer for all things cyber, and as I mentioned, we have delivered some CISP qualifications to be free before. But you should find us on your intranet there, where you can have a look at all of the different courses we offer, both on a public schedule or sort of in-house and customized. So feel free, take a look, and you can message through to Marlin or to Therese, who's also on this call, if you have any questions on that. Or if you have any other questions for Olof, then feel free to send those through, and we can take those outside of this forum.
Yes. Thank you so much. I need to leave this meeting because the music is about to start here again. But thank you so much. Don't forget to check out Learning Tree, and talk to you soon again. And see you next time, next week, same time.
Thanks,
Bye,
Marlin.
guys.
Thanks, Olof.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Olof. Thanks, Marlene. Bye.